must follow. This is reality, yes I know. When you lead, the blessings follow.
All right, so I'm coming through, my brothers and sisters. Shalom, this is your host, Joseph Israel. Forgive me, I'm just getting used to producing my own show. And you are tuned in to the Kingdom Road Radio Show. Looking forward to this show with you all. We're going to talk about Babylon the Great is fallen. And what is Babylon? And what does it mean that Babylon is fallen? And what are the prophecies pointing us to? And how has it fulfilled? And what is yet to be fulfilled? So there's a lot to learn on this subject. And I look forward to go over that with you all today. The point is that the light gets brighter and brighter as we move forward on the road of the Kingdom Road. That's why I even chose this name of the show, because there's a way to the kingdom of the Most High out of this world of confusion. And he's been pointing the human race towards that kingdom, his kingdom, ever since the beginning. And he had us in the kingdom in the Garden of Eden. It was a beautiful paradise condition. And man chose to disobey. And it got so bad that during the days of Noah, the whole earth was wiped out except for the families of Noah. They were saved from the flood. And most of us know that story of Noah and his ark, and the animals were saved, and Noah preserved much of the vegetation and fruits that we have today, and came over on the ark that rained for 40 days and 40 nights, and everything that was on the earth that wasn't on the ark, there was a land animal, died. And this was a judgment upon how corrupt the human race had gotten, and it was also a picture of the deliverance that he will deliver us again, because the world has definitely gotten corrupt. But it wasn't long till after Noah got off the ark and his children began to be fruitful and multiply, that the people got it in them to do something wicked and to rebel against the Most High. And then we find that the beginnings of Babel started after the flood, and it started in Genesis. We can find in Genesis chapter 11, verse 1, it says, "Now all the earth continued to be of one language and of one set of words. And it came about that in their journey in eastward, they eventually discovered a valley plain in the land of Shinar." So this is the land of Babylon. "And they took up a dwelling there, and they began to say, they said each one to another, 'Come on, let us make bricks and bake them with a burning process.' So brick served as a stone for them, but bitumen served as mortar for them. They now said, 'Come on, let us build ourselves a city and also a tower and its top to reach the heavens. And let us make a celebrated name for ourselves, for fear lest we be scattered all over the surface of the earth.'" So this is man began to build a tower, which we know as Babel Tower. They began to build an organization, and this was a rebellion. Within this, they began to worship creatures instead of the Creator. This is where modern paganism and all of these things have its root in. This is where all disobedience in the modern time. This is the first organized government, so to speak, after the flood. And it says, "And Yahweh proceeded to go down to the sea, the city and the tower, and that the sons of men had built. And after that, Yahweh said, 'Look, they are of one people, and there is one language for them all.' And this is what they start to do. Why now? There is nothing that they may have in mind to do that will be unattainable for them. Come now, let us go down and there confuse their language, that they may not listen to one another's language." Accordingly, Yahweh scattered them from there over all the surface of the earth, and they gradually left off the building of the city. And that is why it became known as Babel, because there Yahweh had confused the languages of all the earth, and Yahweh had scattered them from there all over the surface of the earth. So we find out here that what they had come up with was a disobedient purpose, a disobedient plan, to make a name for themselves, to exalt themselves, to forget their Creator, not to trust in His laws, but to trust in their own ways. And this is where man began to govern themselves. Now, knowing that the the devil was still active in that time, just as he was in the Garden of Eden, and he got man to disobey there and continuing to lead man in a disobedient path all the way to the flood, to their destruction. And only the few righteous, like Noah and his family and Enoch and others, were able to maintain a pure faith and a pure walk. The same thing happened after the flood. And then when they built up this Babel organization, it was a mockery to the Most High. So, but within this, they had certain practices that they had come up with. They were influenced by the devil. One of them was politics. Now, all of the governments of today have a political element. All of the Babel, everything has its roots in this Babel organization. This is what I'm going to show you today. So when the languages were split, they took their ideas with them. So when we find out that whether you look at the Mayan religion or you look at African religions, the tribal religions, the religions of the people, Middle Eastern religions that were, European religions like Celtic and the different pagan religions of the world, you'll find that they all have certain elements and they all worship the creature instead of the creator. And you're going to find that in creation, they worship, trees, they worship the man, they worship the woman, they worship the child, they worship, they have these certain days that they have these festivals like solstice and all of these things they have carried on. And you'll find they all have this in harmony. Where did this start? This started, and it goes all the way back to Babel Tower. And the reason, obviously there's some differences, and over time, their differences were, it happened because they developed their own cultural differences. But there's so much things that line up. We know that this is where it came from. So, but that's the religious element. The religions have these certain practices, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit more. But what we do, we see that all of the societies around the world, when they left out from Babel, they had an organization. We can look at Egypt. Egypt had a political element. They had Pharaoh. They had a commercial element, the Nile and the trade, and that's what made Egypt really big, was their commercial element. And then they also had a religious element, and the way that they all worked together was the religion supported the politicians, the Pharaoh, and the businessmen, and they all worked together, and the Pharaoh supported the business, and also the religions and the businessmen supported the religions, and they all worked together to make one big confusing Egyptian organization. Well, the same thing happened in every culture around the world. So when we see all the world powers that have ever marched, they had these elements. Whether it's Egypt, after the fall of Babel, at Babel Tower and the scattering, Egypt was the next one to rise up as a great world power, so to speak. So the devil influenced the Egyptians to continue on with what they were doing at Babel, and they were very successful. And we know that they actually took the children of Israel captive, and Israel was delivered from Egypt. And Egypt had to witness many great signs and wonders from the Almighty, and yet they still didn't humble themselves. Israel later was oppressed by the next world power, which were the Assyrians. The Assyrians were the next on the scene. So where Egypt was, you could say, a more commercially strong nation than Assyria. And if you look at the history of Assyria, Assyria was more, you could say, politically, or, the government, they had big, strong government. That's what they were strong on, more than trade. They also had trade, they also had religion, but that was their big strength. And then after some time went by in the land of Shinar and where Babel Tower was, some people had stayed there, and they were still working to build up their nation. And so Babylon, which we know, Babel, began to get strong and actually became the third world power. So you had Egypt, Assyria, Babylon. So, and then you have Babylon got big again, and they became the third world power since Noah's flood. The Babel Tower was the beginning of an organization like that, but they got stopped immediately. And then it went to Egypt. Then it went to Assyria later on, and then Babylon came back on the scene. And we know them that they were under Nebuchadnezzar. They conquered Jerusalem even. So, but what was it that set Babylon apart? Babylon was headed by religion. Babylon, though they had a powerful king and they had powerful business, the most powerful people in Babylon were the religionists. And so what we have in the scriptures is that we have all the prophets, so to speak. We have many prophets speaking about this Babylon system, including Jeremiah, including Isaiah, including Daniel, including the book of Revelations. So what we're going to find out today is the harmony of the various prophecies uttered by these different prophets in the different times. Now, the thing is that people think, well, Babylon was done away with long ago. But there's a reason why they kept bringing it up, because Babylon is symbolic of the devil's organization. Now, the name Babylon, as we read in Genesis, is associated with confusion. And all the nations have inherited confusion. And it refers to, I'll just tell you, the devil's organization. And we're going to look into that a little bit more too. So throughout the world, no matter what it was, you could call it Babylon because it was the devil's organization. And so there's these three elements that the devil's organization always has. And we'll find that they exist even in the last days. And they're actually called three unclean spirits in Revelation 16. I'm actually turning to that right now. In Revelation 16, it says, "And I saw three unclean spirits like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon." So we know the dragon is the devil. "Out of the mouth of the beast," that's his organization, that's the system. "And out of the mouth of the false prophet." Now that's the false prophet is not just one person, but it's the deception that the devil's system has, and there's many people that they use to be these false prophets. It's the deception that they have all over the world. Now, out of the mouth of the dragon, who is the one who inspired all of this, came these three unclean spirits, and it's seen in his system, the beast. Now, why is the system called the beast? Because it's selfish, and it only cares for its own survival. It doesn't care about anyone else. It's not a loving creature. It's a selfish beast, and so that describes it. And there's so much to go into on this. But what we see is that Babylon was actually mainly a religious or a power, and we'll find out that in the very last days, what rises up is the final Babylon the Great, so to speak, even though we could call Babylon the worst. But it's great in the sense that it's powerful to deceive, and it's in all the wrong ways it's great, so so basically that's what I want to bring out here on that, just to start us off. Now let's see here. Let's go to Revelations chapter 18, verse 2. Or actually 18, verse 1 and 2. "And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his splendor. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and the cage of every unclean and hateful bird." Okay. Babylon has fallen, and it has become an unclean organization. But it says after these things. What is he speaking about? These judgments that have come upon Babylon's system. And if we skip down, we keep going, verse 3, it says, "All nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have waxed rich through the abundancies of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and Elohim has remembered her iniquities." So what we see here, that it's very important that we get out of there, because Babylon is going down. Now, if we turn to Jeremiah 51, verse 45, we'll find the same thing. It says, "Go out of the midst of her, my people, let every man save his life from the fierce anger of your way." So what it says here to get out, it's telling us if you stay in Babylon system at this point, you're going to go down with it because the whole world is going to be destroyed. And this is a loving prophecy, a loving preaching that the Most High gives us, a loving teaching because He wants us all to be saved. He wants us to come out of the system. So how do you first come out of the system? By breaking the chains, the mental chains and the spiritual chains that they have on us. Now they've influenced minds of humans for all these times, and when they rise, as it's getting closer to the end, it's going to get stronger and stronger. So it's going to take a more clear understanding of the scriptures to be able to see through the deception of Babylon system. Okay, so in today's world is definitely a confused world. We're going to talk about that because there's over, I think now at least 1,200 different Christian religions. This shows you how really deceived it is. And so the thing is that with that kind of confusion in the earth, people are using the scriptures for anything goes. But the Most High is an Elohim of love, justice, and wisdom. And then He uses His power. And so we have to, like as we talked about last week, when the truth sets you free, you know that there's only the truth about the Most High. A lot of the things that people are teaching in these religions, these Babylon religions, are actually lies, like hellfire, and these doctrines like that put a stain on the Almighty's name. Now, as we talked about, we have the march of the world powers. So we had Egypt, Assyria, Babylon. Those are 1, 2, 3. Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar took over Jerusalem and took the children of Israel captive and held them in bondage for 70 years. And then Cyrus, it was prophesied by Isaiah the prophet in Isaiah chapter 45 that he would take over. This prophecy was way before that Babylon would fall to Cyrus. Let's see here. Let me get to this scripture here. Turning to Isaiah. Chapter 45, verse 1. "Thus says Yahweh to His anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holded to subdue nations before him. I will loose the loins of kings to open before him the two levied gates, and the gates shall not be shut." He was the one that came and conquered Babylon. And so He established the Medo-Persian Empire as the fourth world power. And then who conquered them later, a few hundred years later, was the Greek world power under Alexander. And then came Rome. And so what we have here, those were 6 world powers. And then after the 6 world powers came the Anglo-American world power, which America and Britain were a part of. And they ruled for a long time, but after World War II, we've entered into a new stage, which is the final stage of the world powers before the 8th world power, which is the king of iron and the king of clay of Daniel 2. We have one that is capitalism is the king of clay. The feet of clay is the king of iron, is the communist. And these two basically rule the world. And the world is divided into mainly those two thoughts. So we have a divided world, and these are also, just to point out, the 2 horns of Revelation chapter 13. And these are the 2 ones that actually suggest that they build another Babylon. So we're going to find out what Babylon is. But it says in Revelation 13:11, it says, "I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spoke as a dragon." So again, the dragon is a part of this. And these 2 horns are the 2 powers, the king of iron and the king of clay, or the feet of iron and the feet of clay of Daniel 2. The communist and the capitalist. Why? Obviously, the communist is iron because it's unyielding, and in the democracies, the capitalists, you can make an impression, you have more rights, so it's considered a clay nation. Now, getting into this, let's go to Revelation 12, verse 9. It says, "And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceived the whole world." So we see here that the devil has deceived the whole world. And if Babylon is considered the devil's organization, then, and we understand it's a worldwide thing because he's deceived the whole world. It's reached the whole world. And we find here that the apostles teach that. If we go to 1 John chapter 5, verse 19, it says, "We know that we are of Elohim, and the whole world lies in the hands of the wicked one." Revised Standard. So that is the thing, the whole world, the system is of the devil. And if we go on to James or Jacob, James 4:4, it says here, "You adulterers and adulteresses, know ye not that friendship of the world is enmity with Elohim, and whosoever therefore be a friend of the world is an enemy of Elohim." So here we have that the whole world lies in the hand of the wicked one. The anyone's a friend of the world is an enemy of the Most High. That Satan the devil has deceived the whole world. And we find that Babylon has, if we go all the way back to Revelations 18, verse 3, it says, "For all nations have drunk the wine of the wrath of her fornication." Now this is the adultery, the fornication that she offers the kings of the earth. So she offers all the kings of the earth. And who does she else? The kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the merchants of the earth have waxed rich through her. So there you have the kings, the politicians of the earth, and you have the merchants, the businessmen. So who heads Babylon? Religion. She has offered in the wine of fornication. Now fornication is obviously an immoral act of she's dwelling, like these are people that she sleeps with. This is a sexual sin, but in a spiritual level, this is she claims that she serves the Almighty, but she's actually serving these politicians and businessmen. So she's cheating. She's committed fornication. She's an adulterer. So this is when it says, "You shall not commit adultery." In the commandments, it's teaching us two things. One, that we should be moral and sound people within our marriage, and that we should live upright and on the physical level, but spiritually also we should be fully married, so to speak, to the Most High, and that we should not seek political leaders and trust in this world, and so be divided and be committing adultery, because we have to follow the Lamb wherever he leads us. So the Lamb has called us out to follow the Most High and to serve your way, and we want to follow the Lamb because he's going to lead us to victory. And so the bride of the Lamb, she was pure, and so all the people that serve your way are going to also not commit adultery, just like the bride, and they're going to be pure. So they're the ones that come out of her, "My people, that you be not partakers of her sins and receive not of her plagues." So now, how do we come out of Babylon? We come out of Babylon by separating from the world, as I was saying earlier, by seeking Yahweh's truth, seeking the truth of his kingdom, the good news. And I know many people on the Messianic radio, they've already done these things and are doing these things, and it's we're learning, we're growing, but many of the things that religion has inherited, and most of these people don't know, like through Christianity, that when they're doing Christmas and Easter and these things, they're actually celebrating these old Babylonian rituals that go all the way back to Babel Tower, that you'll find scattered throughout every nation. And they were adopted by the Catholic Church when in 325 AD with Constantine and the Nicene Council. And these things became a part of the organized religion of the Universal Church, what they call the Universal Church, the Catholic Church. And she actually is the modern Babylon religion. And she will actually has deceived the earth through the spiritual fornication that she has brought. And actually all the other religions that have come out from under her, the Protestant religions, haven't gotten out from under her grips, and that's why they're still doing these pagan celebrations, and they're not teaching the truth. So instead of serving the true Elohim, they're actually serving the false one while they're reading the Bible, and so they've actually fallen into a horrible deception, and we got to call our brothers and sisters out to come out of Babylon. Now, instead of serving Yahweh and the Son and His Son, they've actually been serving. They're caught up in a sun god false worship of the sun, which was this illusion from Babylon. And so I'm about to go to a little break here, and you're going to hear a great brother, Kerry Alexander, bring so much truth about how we've been too long in the sun, in these corrupt practices, and we got to come out of Babylon. He exposes it very great in the song. So I want you all to enjoy Kerry Alexander, who comes up after this break, Too Long in the Sun.
We worship all when we call upon the Lord. We love Nimrod by the tree that we adorn. We decorate our eggs in the truth we ignore, and we cling on to their lies. We never left Egypt and pagan ways. We reminisce of Babylon all our days, all the days of the week and the Sunday. We've got to accept them all. We've been too long in the sun. Now it's burning everyone. Our eyes are blind from gazing on. We've been too long in the sun. Let the rain fall down on you and me. Let the dirt cloud be covered by a raging sea. Let Torah truth take us all safely to Messiah, we will be free. Let Him wash away tradition and all our lies, away our guilt and our wicked ties. Give us what we need to open our eyes, and the real Messiah we will see. We've been too long in the sun. Now it's burning everyone. Our eyes are blind from gazing on. We've been too long in the sun. We worship all who call upon the Lord. We love Nimrod by the tree that we adorn. We decorate our eggs with the truth we ignore. We cling on to their lies. We never left Egypt and the pagan ways. We reminisce of Babylon all our days, all the days of the week and the Sunday. We thought we accept them all. We've been too long in the sun. Now it's burning everyone. Our eyes are blind from gazing on. We've been too long in the sun. Let the rain fall down on you and me. Let the truth be covered by a raging sea. Let the Lord take us all safely to Messiah, we will be free. Let Him wash away tradition and all our lies, away our guilt and wicked ties. Give us what we need to open our eyes, and the Messiah we see. Too long in the sun. Now it's burning everyone. Our eyes are blind from gazing on. We've been too long in the sun.
Yes, that was Kerry Alexander, Too Long in the Sun. And yes, we have been too long in the sun. Let Torah truth bring us all safely to the Messiah, and we shall be free. Yes, Brother Kerry, you guys search Kerry Alexander online. I'm going to interview him one day here soon on my show. A great artist, a great brother in the faith, a very wonderful songwriter and individual, very true brother. So where we left off was how we stay apart from Babylon. And I want to kind of backtrack a little bit. I want to talk about how to the world, because as we've talked about that the world has been deceived by the devil. That first, the place we have to realize is that we've all in this world have been deceived. And then we can actually become enlightened by the truth. And so to the world, that the message is hidden, but in the last days it was to be understood. Now, the prophet Jeremiah tells us this in Jeremiah 30, verse 24, it says, "In the last days you shall understand it perfectly." In one translation, or another one, "In the latter days you shall consider it," which is, what shall we consider? Is in Jeremiah chapter 30. It also talks about it in Jeremiah chapter 23. We also find that the Messiah tells us in Matthew 10, verse 26, he says, "Fear them not, therefore, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, and nothing hid that shall not be known." So, actually, even though the message has not been understood, and Babylon thinks they've gotten away with it, they actually will not get away with it, because it will be exposed. Everything that's hidden, done in the dark, will be revealed in the light. So who brings us the light? The Messiah gives us the teachings. We have the Torah, all of the scriptures to guide us. The Israelites were warned about going into the pagan rituals and the pagan, don't learn the ways of the nations. This was given right in the Torah portions we've been reading, right? Israel should never do those things, but they did. And like this week's Torah portion, he says that even if they do that, he will still call them back. He will reject them for a time, but then he will restore Israel. And now at the time, he's calling back his people out of all tongues, tribes, and nations to serve him with one understanding, with one truth. And Yahshua says to us, "What I tell you in darkness, that speak in the light, and what you hear in your ear, preach upon the housetops." Basically, this message has to get spread. The voice is calling out from heaven, saying, "Come out of Babylon, my people." Now, if we go back to Revelation 18, it said, the earth was lighted up with the splendor of the message. Verse 1 there. That Babylon has fallen. So, we have to talk about more about this Babylon system, that it's actually been a deception upon the human race, and the world has been deceived by it. But the Most High declared in Isaiah chapter 46, he declared, as he tells us, that he knows all things at all times. And so he tells us in Isaiah chapter 46, verse 9 and 10, "Remember the former things of old, for I am El, and there is none else. I am Elohim, and there is none like me, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure." So he exposed Babylon a long time ago. Right at Babel Tower, he doomed it, and even though they rose up as a world power under Nebuchadnezzar, that was not just the final end, because it tells us right here in Revelations to come out of Babylon again in the last days, showing us that there is something more to this Babylon, and actually that it actually reaches the whole earth, so to speak. But he tells us in Isaiah 47, verse 1, "Get down and sit in the dust, O fair maiden Babylon. Sit dethroned on the ground, O fair Chaldea. Never more shall they call you the tender and dainty one." So basically, the system is going to be exposed, and all the things that they have done, everyone will know. All right, so let's see here. So who will understand the truth? Let's turn to Psalms 25. Okay. Psalms 25, verse 1. "Unto thee, O Yahweh, do I lift up my soul. O my Elohim, I trust in thee. Let me not be ashamed, and let not my enemies triumph over me. Yes, let none that wait on thee be ashamed. Let them be ashamed which transgress without cause. Show me thy ways, O Yahweh, and teach me thy paths. Lead me in thy truth, and teach me. For thou art the Elohim of my salvation. On thee do I wait all day long." So those who seek him, it says here in verse 8, it goes, "Good and upright is your way, therefore will he teach the sinners in the way. The meek will he guide in judgment, and the meek will he teach his ways. All the paths of your way are mercy and truth, and such as keep his covenant and his testimonies. For thy name's sake, O Yahweh, pardon my iniquity, for it is great. What man is he that fears Yahweh? Him he shall teach the way that he shall choose. His soul shall dwell at ease, and his seed shall inherit the earth. The secret of Yahweh is with them that fear him, and he will show them his covenant. So there it is. The truth, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The secret of Yahweh is with him that fear him. So this secret is not understood by the world, but he declared it from the beginning. He declared the end from the beginning. So what we have here is that the devil has deceived the whole world, but yet Yahweh, those who fear him and those who love him, he's going to give his secret. And it is that truth that will set them free, and they will be able to come out. Now, let's go now to Luke 21, verse 24. Luke 21, verse 24 says that Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. So there was a time that Jerusalem was trodden down, and this actually began when Babylon trodden down Jerusalem a long time ago. And even in the time when the Messiah walked the earth 2,000 years ago, Jerusalem in a sense was trodden down because they were still a vassal state of Rome. It has been under the authority of the Gentiles all that time. Now, Jerusalem also is symbolic, as the Apostle Paul brings out, that there was many pictures and foreshadows in the scriptures, including the Sabbath. He says, let no man judge you of Sabbath keeping, eating and drinking, and keeping a feast. These are shadows of something greater to come. So though understanding that those are real feasts and the Sabbath is real and all these things, there's also was picturing something greater. So when we also have Jerusalem was also picturing something greater, and we also have Babylon was picturing something greater, and Israel of old was picturing something greater. The Exodus was picturing something greater. So the Most High was declaring the end from the beginning and using all of these types of foreshadows and examples of how it's going to be in the last days. He says in Isaiah 28 that I speak in the tongue of the last days. And this is when Jeremiah says in the last days you will understand it. And Daniel chapter 12 says this. Go to Daniel here. There's Daniel. Apologize for that. A little moment. Okay. It says that the verse 4 of Daniel 12, but thou, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased. So knowledge will be increased in the time of the end. And then it goes on in verse 10, many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise will understand. And I should have read this too. Verse 9, Daniel 12, go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. So all of the prophecies of Daniel will be understood in the times of the end. And this is also when Jerusalem, it basically is that the devil's system would have the march of the world powers, they marched on, and Jerusalem was trodden underfoot. What happened in Israel of old was a type of the kingdom that the Most High is going to start through the Messiah. David pictured the Messiah. Jerusalem pictured his ruling city. The New Jerusalem, we'll go into in another study, another radio show that shows you how that the New Jerusalem is the bride of the Messiah coming down out of heaven. So there's a lot to go into, and we'll explain more and more into these things, these secrets that are being revealed in the last days. Now, Babylon the Great has fallen. It begins by this wonderful message, the secret getting out of what Babylon is. And actually, Matthew 24, verse 7 says this. part of the signs of the times of the end are nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. So we do live in a time where we have pestilence and famine and wars and earthquakes in diverse places. Another way to look at that in a deeper meaning for nation against nation, because notice that it's singular. The Most High's nation versus devil's nation, so to speak. The kingdom of the Almighty versus the kingdom of the devil. We have this going on now. We are in the time where the message is actually being spread and the truth is being understood. And so we have this going on. So Babylon is actually going to be exposed and is being exposed. And as we talked about it, Babylon is headed by religion, which is going to be namely the Catholic Church. And but it also has these politicians and big businessmen. The merchants of Babylon shall weep, and as it says in Revelations 18. And we're going to get more into that when we get back. But first, we're going to take a short break. You've been tuning in to the Kingdom Road Radio Show. This is your host, Joseph Israel, promoting love and justice, wisdom and power. I love you all, and enjoy the music.
You're listening to the Kingdom Road Radio Show on Messianic Lamb Radio, promoting a lifestyle of hope.
Yeah. Remove our wicked oppressors, O child. The merchants of Babylon shall weep. The politicians so will grieve. They could not overstand the prophecy. So they trust in the new world order for security. And now they've accepted the mark of the beast. And for their corruption, there is no release. No. The righteous ones, they shall be free. Yeah. Oh, what a day that will be. Oh, what a day that will be. And no more living in poverty. No more living in poverty. No restless masses of humanity. Yeah. 'Cause in front of Jah's throne there is a glassy sea. And through your trials and tribulation, I say you shall be released. Oh children, we've got to rise to get your blessing. And the gifts of Yahweh is His mercies, yeah. So we're living life together, I said abundantly, yeah. Oh what a day that will be. Righteous children shall be free. But Babylon, too much looting and shooting. Babylon, brainwash education. Babylon, a wicked institution. Babylon, yeah, no more illusions. Babylon, it's fun so done. Babylon, see the fire upon. Babylon, there is nowhere to run. Babylon, Jah kingdom will come. But there shall come a time when the righteous shall rise. children shall be free. Na 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 na. Oh, what a day that would be.
Yes. What a day that will be, my brothers and sisters. This is the Kingdom Road Radio Show promoting a message of hope. And what a day that will be when the righteous children are set free, the meek inherit the earth, the kingdom of the Almighty is established. And this is, in order to get to there, we have to come out of this Babylon system in which we live in today. And this is the whole thing is about hope. Now the message is doomed for the system we live in. But we have to survive in the system, and we're not against any individual. I'm not against any individual person or anything. And everybody in this world has their own views and all these things. And that's actually part of what adds to the confusion. But when we come and seek the Most High, Yahweh, and seek His Torah, seek His truth, within His scriptures, we actually begin to get His mind on the matter, or the Messiah's mind, because the Messiah really shows us the way. And we all begin to think the same. And then we begin to unite together as brothers and sisters. So when we can understand together what's the right way to go, then we're going to start seeing a true harmony on the earth. And as long as we stay in this world, it's going to be a disharmony. There's war and famines and pestilence, and this is the results of the devil's rule. This is not the intention the Most High had for the earth, and the way things are today is temporary. And so that's why He's calling us out. He wants us to know that Babylon the Great is fallen. Now, it hasn't fully fallen yet, but it's as good as done. If the Most High says it's fallen, it's as good as done. So we talked about today, the Babylon system is made up of three elements. The three unclean spirits of Revelation 16 are politics, commerce, and religion. But why it's referred to, why the world power, the final world power is called Babylon in the book of Revelations, is because the final world power that's going to rule this world of the devil's system is actually a religious head of a world power. Now that's where we get into the wine of fornication that she offers the world. Now, so who is this one who rules over Babylon, who's going to gain control? Now, many people have actually heard of the one world government or the new world order. You actually hear it in the news. You see politicians talking about it and all these things, and they're actually looking to build a Babylon system. But the one thing that you're not hearing about as much is who's going to be the head of it, and they're actually, the scriptures tells us exactly who is going to be. And if we go to Revelation 17, it says here, "And there came one of the seven angels which had seven vials, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sits upon many waters." The whore, the harlot, the great, she sits upon many waters. If you go to verse 15, it says, "The waters which thou sawest the whore sitting on is peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues." This is a worldwide organization all over the world. She is the one. Okay, so we find here that who is this great harlot? Well, we found out that in James 4:4, friendship with the world is enmity with God, but you're also called an adulterer. So she's claiming to be the bride of Christ, but she's actually committing spiritual adultery. With who does she commit the adultery with? Verse 2, "With the kings of the earth she has committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication." So they've got the people duped, and the world is blind to these things. The whole world has been deceived by the devil, and it's through these organizations that he has deceived them. Okay, now of course, there's great people that are in all religions of the world. It doesn't mean they're bad people. I'm not saying any individual is a bad person, or I'm not judging actually any individual. But these organizations and what they're teaching are not the truth. And because anything that is opposing the Most High is evil. And so whatever sin or imperfection that we have, all of us have to cleanse and wash ourselves, and none of us are perfect. But we got to come out of this system. This system has had all these thousands of years to rule. It's never worked. No matter if it was Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Medo Persia, Greeks, the Romans, the American, the British, the communist side, no government that man or religion that man has ever come up with has ever been the truth. And so what is happening here, the world has been made drunk. When you're drunk, you can't reason. And it says, he carried me away in the spirit in the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting upon a scarlet-colored beast full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So this woman is actually, the symbols of the scriptures teach us that the scarlet represents the blood here, and the beast is the system. It's a bloody system. It's built, the history of the world is built upon bloodshed, full of the names of blasphemy. It means it's claiming to serve the Most High, but it's actually not. Having 7 heads and 10 horns, 7 denotes heavenly number, heavenly complete, and the head is where the wisdom is. So it's claiming to have heavenly wisdom, and 10 horns means a horn is power, and 10 represents earthly complete. And so this is actually a religious organization gaining world power. So this is actually is going to be the rise of the Catholic Church, and she's going to rule over the kings of the earth. And it says, just because we're running short on time here, it says, verse 12 says, and the 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, they shall give their power and strength into the beast. So this system is going to be the 8th world power. It's going to be the one world government, and they're going to have the Catholic Church, Babylon, as the head of Babylon, and it's only going to last for 3.5 years. You'll find 42 months in other scriptures, and I'm going to go over this more and more on the Kingdom Road radio show. My brothers and sisters, these are the prophecies that we have to understand to come out, to be on the Kingdom Road, to come out of Babylon, my people. It says, as far as Babylon is concerned, verse 14 of Rev 17, these shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is the King of the sovereign of sovereigns and the King of kings. And they that are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. These are the Israelites, and they will try to fight against the truth, but they will fail. And so we are to come out of Babylon, my people. Babylon the Great is fallen. It's already been exposed. The elements of politics, commerce, and religion, they can't hold you. The religious practices that they teach in Sunday school and church and what other religions too, they're all teaching the lies. So I just ask you to do some homework yourself. Look up religious world peace movement meeting at the Vatican. Just search that on the Google and see what comes up. You're going to find out that all the world leaders, all the world religious leaders meet at the Vatican. You're going to find out, start looking at this stuff, and realize that there is an actual geopolitical, religious movement going on, my brothers and sisters, and it's not good, because it's the kingdom of the devil, and it's trying to fight against the kingdom of the Most High. But this is Messianic Radio, Lamb Radio. This is the Kingdom Road Radio Show, and we have a message of hope that the meek will inherit the earth, and that all we trust in is the Most High and His Spirit, and that His will be done on this earth. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We don't fight any physical wars. We only love our neighbor, and we pray for those that use us. We even love our enemies, and we love you. I love you, my brothers and sisters, and thank you for tuning in. And until next week at the same time, we will continue on with this good news of the kingdom. May your way be with you on your spiritual path, and have a good Shabbat once it comes in, and just Shalom Aleichem.
He will lead, we must follow. This is reality, yes I know. When you lead, the blessings follow. While we trotting on the kingdom road, kingdom road. We always in the sun, kingdom road. The light of Zion, kingdom road. Redemption time has come, kingdom road. Tell me, are you ready? Cross over Jordan. Are you ready to meet the promise? promised land.